Welcome to Cybersecurity Where You Are, the Center for Internet Security's podcast. I'm Sean Atkinson, CISO at CIS.
And I'm Tony Sager, Senior Vice President and Chief Evangelist at CIS. Cybersecurity affects us all, whether we're online at home, managing a company, supporting clients, or running a state or local government.
So join us on Wednesdays as we discuss trends and threats, explore security best practices, and interview experts in the industry.
Together, we'll clarify these issues, creating confidence in the connected world.
Hello and welcome to the show, Cybersecurity Where You Are. I'm Sean Atkinson, CISO here at the Center for Internet Security, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Ed Scotus, President of the SANS Technology Institute, founder of Counter Hack Challenges, the godfather himself. Ed, welcome to the show, sir.
Sean, thank you. It is such a delight to be here. We've been thinking about this for months, and man, am I excited. I'm just really thrilled.
Absolutely. Me as well. And we have got a really intriguing topic. It's topical. It's looking at the future. We're delving into the nuances of AI in penetration testing. Really starting to think about the future of security assessment. There's been a lot of news, a lot of hype coming out of RSA, announcements from large AI organizations about the future of security management, assessment, vulnerability. Ed, that there is a new path that seems in front of us, but maybe not as new as we thought. Because Ed, you've been in this space for quite a while and working with AI in penetration testing. So any thoughts that you have as to what you've seen and really from a practical perspective, what does it mean today?
Sure. So I've been doing cybersecurity work now for 30 years. We didn't call it cybersecurity when I started. I'm actually going to be heading to my 30th DEF CON this summer. So it's been interesting. I've seen a lot of evolution since then and have worked hard on penetration testing. That's where my focus has been. And I have to say, with the recent advancements in AI vulnerability discovery through source code analysis, I'm excited in a way that I haven't been in a decade or more about the capabilities of defenders to be able to find vulnerabilities and eliminate them in our environment faster than ever before. I really think we have a chance not to completely upend the attacker's game, but to gain some more advantage. You know, in cybersecurity, attackers typically have the lead. Why? Because we're defending against their old attacks. So they have to create new attacks, right? But I think we have a chance with what we're seeing technologically in a way that we haven't seen in decades to actually be able to maybe not completely drain the swamp of vulnerabilities, but to lower the vulnerabilities in our attack surface in a significant way. I think it's going to get really rough over the short term. 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, we're going to see more vulnerabilities than we've seen in a long time. But I think a year, 2, 3 years out, we actually could have a far more safe and secure infrastructure. There'll still be a cybersecurity industry. There's still going to be attacks. There's still going to be penetration testing. That's not going away. But I think we can get a much better footing in the intermediate and certainly the longer term.
Absolutely. You know, Ed, I'm thinking of it this way, and it may be a little bit abstract, but I thought it feels like that technical debt that we've been building all of these years, that maybe it's now time that we pay that back through such a program and start to build capability, even to the point of, shift left, get secure by design. We're starting to identify vulnerability at a much greater rate, a lot greater granularity, really finding where all the skeletons are. It seems like we can now start to move in a positive direction. And then I think it becomes, as you mentioned, the cat and mouse game then becomes AI-enabled adversary versus AI-enabled defender, and that will have some interesting elements in the space. But like you say, the excitement, the palpitation of just look at what we have now at our hands in terms of capability. And again, I think also the attackers are thinking the same thing, is such an interesting proposition. And I think it's, the new age, the new era. We've been through the big data. Now we're into AI-enabled capability. It feels like this could be another one of those ages that it's. I think I'm glad I'm here for it. I may not be for the next 3 to 6 months, to your point, but after we get past that, I think it's going to be very, very interesting.
I have so many thoughts on that. One of the things that James Line, he's the new CEO of SANS, he says is in a world where everyone has AI, attackers have AI, defenders have AI, it's the people who make the difference now. Again. So that's pretty noble and pretty wonderful. But I do have this sense of wonder and excitement of what's happening in the industry. And one of my big things, we can get into the details of it later in the episode, but AI-enabled workflows. When some people think of AI, and let's narrow it down to pen testing, field that I'm very familiar with, they think about sort of sprinkling some AI on the existing workflows. Or maybe you've got a little AI buddy there and you're chatting with it while you're doing your pen test. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But I find it far more interesting when we create a completely new workflow from the ground up that is AI-centric, because there's so much greater benefit potential for that. And right now, one of the things that we're working on here is to figure out what these new workflows are for cybersecurity generally and pen testing specifically. And we figured out a few of them for pen testing. But I'm certain there are AI-centric workflows to be invented for digital forensics, incident response. I'm sure some of our listeners right now are saying, no, we found that one. We've identified that one. And we're looking now to try to identify the thought leaders in creating those new AI-centric workflows. It is possible there are some roles in cybersecurity for which there is not an AI-centric workflow. I don't know what it might be. We'll figure that out over time. Maybe leadership, maybe GRC. Although I still think there are some pieces of those jobs that will have AI-centric workflows. But I'm going whole hog right now on AI-centric workflows for penetration testing, and also talking with other folks within SANS and outside of SANS to see how we could identify and train people up in those other skills and roles in AI-centric workflows.
Absolutely. I think that's to maintain the skill set. And I would also ask, coming through the SANS Technical Institute, what we're seeing in terms of both the learning and application in that space. A lot of great work coming from SANS in terms of AI-enabled capability, leaning very, very heavily into the capability. Makes a lot of sense, right? It's both building the knowledge, building a posture to understand and utilize AI to the greatest effect. Because I think that's what's going to be the offset, as it were. So there's the individual, there's the individual plus AI, but there's the individual that's enabled by AI and can use it to its maximum capacity, let's say, at this point. It is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I think in our space, in cybersecurity, and obviously specifically in penetration testing, do you see that coming through both from students and then also through counter hack challenges? You've got some of the premier penetration testers in the world, respectfully. How are they leaning into it the same way, or are they literally on the cutting edge?
We are. We are very much leaning into it. There's a couple of different metaphors. I told my team about a year ago, I said, I foresee a future 2 to 3 years from now where you will become AI wranglers. So that's the metaphor I used. I didn't come up with that term. I had read it somewhere, but AI wranglers. So, I guess there's like cattle or something, steers, whatever they are, and they're wrangling them. And I said, you'll wake up in the morning, see what your AIs did last night, figure out what they got to do today, and you'll direct them on their way, and you're wrangling them. And that was a fine metaphor, but there's another one I came up with. Actually, I was in San Francisco at the Unprompted conference back in March, and I came up with this one. This one came out of my brain. And I like it. It's a very nice metaphor. I said to my team, you will become AI matadors. So you're there, and the AI is this powerful thing charging, and you've got to direct it with your cape to make sure it doesn't gore you, and yet it goes where it's supposed to go. But there is another metaphor that has been come up with a long, long time ago, and it's the idea of the AI centaur. Right, you've got the head and the torso of a human and the legs of a horse, or well, in this case, an AI. And this term was first coined associated with Garry Kasparov playing chess against that Deep Blue system back in the day.
Yep.
So this was back, I believe it was 1997. And so the best human chess player in the world was beaten by the best AI chess player in the world. Now, this did not start the era where the best player was AI. In fact, the best player was the combination of human AI. This became the AI chess centaur. So the best human AI combination could beat the best human, and it could beat the best AI. And that lasted for about 20 years. After 20 years or so, the best AI could beat the best human, and the best AI could beat the best human and AI working together. In other words, the human and AI working together, the humans holding back the AI, so the best AI can still beat that. So I believe, and I've seen this in my own team, we have now entered the era of the AI matador or the AI pentest centaur. So the best pentester is human and AI working together. Will that last 5 or 10 or 20 years? I don't know. I think we're going to get 3, 5, maybe 7 years out of it, perhaps more, where humans working with AI, each doing what they do best around an AI-centric workflow, is the best way to find vulnerabilities, verify that they exist, understand their business implications and risk, and then make specific recommendations about how to fix it, which is what pen testing is all about. So we live in the age now of the AI pen test centaur.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, the imagery is
Cool.
Rudy. We're going to have to put some real imagery against this now. This is fantastic. I'm going to look for your team to be dressed as matadors, though.
Is that cool? Yeah, I got to put that in the budget. I got to figure out how to buy it. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But we'll stop here for a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Are you a U.S. state, local, tribal, or territorial government?
If so, you know just how difficult cyber defense can get.
You're the frontline defense against cyber threats, yet you don't have the shiny tools, big budget, or skilled talent of an enterprise.
Well, guess what? You don't need them.
You do need a community of like-minded folks to unlock the power of collective cybersecurity.
And that's the superpower of the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center.
The multi-state ISAC provides cyber underserved organizations with protections they otherwise couldn't afford at a price that works for them.
But it's more than just access to services. It's access to a community of peers where your participation protects them and theirs protects you.
Not to mention access to the 24/7/365 CIS Security Operations Center as your full-time public sector cybersecurity partner.
Available as a single organization or state or territory-wide option, the MS-ISAC membership provides threat intelligence, monitoring, and more to fortify your cyber defense.
Become a member today by visiting cisecurity.org/ms-ISAC.
Ed, so as we cut to break, one of the things I wanted to ask you was there's specific phases of penetration testing. And one of the things I wanted to ask is, have you lent into penetration testing AI-enabled in individual phased approaches or as a whole of the lifecycle approach? And does AI lean itself towards one phase of reconnaissance, enumeration, exploitation, reporting, or has it been, well, we'll do some testing and we'll see what phase fits and what we can do with certain AI capability?
We're doing all kinds of experiments, and we've been doing this almost 2 years now, just integrating AI into different aspects of our workflow. One of the places where we get the most bang for our buck is in reporting. So as we're working on our reports, the team can have the AI help with it. Now, I do read every single report my team creates. It's something I do on my weekends. So that way it forces the team to get all their work done by Friday night, because then Ed's going to read on Saturday and Sunday, and I don't have little kids or anything anymore. So I can, and I like reading pen test reports. So that's what I do all weekend long. The team has really upped its game. We have some tools where they can take piece parts that are suitably, stripped of any sensitive customer information, but have the AI help them structure their report and formulate things correctly. And our report, my review time of reports has gotten much more efficient. I'm not finding little grammar bugs as much. I still find them occasionally, but I am looking for AI hallucinations. So sometimes things will get oddly precise. It's like, why did that get so very specific there? Or it'll mention something that I've never heard of before. So I have to go and do, Google searches and such. Does this thing exist? Does it make sense in this context? Also, sometimes it'll repeat itself. So I'll find myself going in and crossing things out saying, you already said this 2 paragraphs ago, but the AI doesn't remember that or something. So reporting has been very helpful for me specifically. But for the other pieces of pen testing, AI is pretty good at enumeration. It's decent at OSINT. It's decent at scanning. It's also decent at remembering large aspects of a complex project, like you're enumerating a Windows domain and there's lots and lots of systems. You have to be careful to manage the context window of the AI, but it might see some things or remember some different paths that it identified earlier to get to domain admin. So it's been good at that. And then there's this whole concept of blowing up the traditional pen test workflow entirely and creating an AI-centric one where it can find vulnerabilities that a traditional pen test might not find. And what I'm referring here to is at least one workflow that we've been having a lot of promise with is it's source-assisted pen testing. That's where you have the source code of a given application and you're doing a pen test. And traditionally, the way this was done is you do a pen test by interacting with the target. You find some weird behavior. You don't look at the source code yet. You just find some weird behavior. It doesn't seem like it should respond this way. Then you look at the source code, see the module and the lines of code that are implementing the weird behavior, and you look at that and say, is this exploitable? Then as a pen tester, based on your knowledge of the source code, you try to create an exploit for it. You shoot it. If it works, it works. You write it up. And when you write it up, you could say to the customer, you could say, hey, it's this module and this line of code that has the problem. We've been doing that 15 years, and it's great. Yep. But starting about 16 months ago, we created a brand new workflow, completely inverted from the traditional workflow. We call it AI-enabled source-assisted penetration testing. And here you start with the source code, unlike you did last time. Last time we didn't start, you got the source code, you didn't look at it. Now you start with the source code, you cleverly prompt AI to go through the source code and define various kinds of flaws. And then you have to really interact with it to manage that context window. Because if you think, the context window for a lot of AI solutions available today is about 1 million tokens. Yep. So if you've got 100,000 lines of code, that might be 300,000 tokens or 400,000 tokens. You're filling up your context window with that. So you got to carefully manage the context window, but have it find candidate vulnerabilities. And it might find the candidate vulnerability. Then you have to interact with it. Why do you think this is vulnerable? Are you sure it's vulnerable? Give me more details about the vulnerability. And then you narrow that down to some that are actually vulnerable. And here's the secret sauce of our doing this, okay? I was just talking with some folks at some of the frontier model providers about the secret sauce that we're doing here. What you then do is you tell the AI to take the potentially vulnerable lines of code and to create a local mock-up, an application that embodies that code and the bare minimum of dependencies you have to make that code run in a fashion that represents the original. But you have the AI created as a command line tool. With an argument, the command line argument is essentially the variable in which there's the potential flaw. Now you have this local tool, this little command line tool that potentially implements the flaw. Then you have the AI create an exploit for it. And you run it all locally. You haven't even touched the target yet. You run it all locally trying to get that exploit to work against your mockup. And if it works against the mockup, you then having iterated on it, you then launch the exploit against the target. And if it works there, it means your mockup was a faithful representation of it. And now this is the first time you've interacted with a target.
Right.
Then you can have the AI write up the result, what it found, and even potentially create a patch. We always tell our customers, make sure you have a human review this patch before you push it into any production system, put it into test first, et cetera, et cetera. So this is an AI-centric workflow for source-assisted pen testing that inverts the whole model. And we wrote a SANS 2-day course. My team at CounterHack wrote a 2-day course at SANS. It's called Sec 543. And it's only 2 days, but it shows this process from initial code mapping all the way through mockups, exploitation, and reporting with patches. All in 2 days. It's kind of a whirlwind 2-day. And that course debuts June 1st and 2nd. We're super excited about it. And in applying this process, we have found massive vulnerabilities, like critical vulnerabilities. And the biggest thing we find on this, Sean, that's super exciting for us is there'll be inside, say, a complex application, there'll be an obscure workflow, maybe even a workflow that doesn't make any sense, humanly speaking. But if you click on this button and that button and then do this and then do that and initiate a transaction here, but cancel a transaction, and you get to this one point and there is the flaw and you can then exploit it. The AI will find that. Yeah. And the biggest thing that we're finding IDOR, we're finding BOLA, we're finding cross-tenant access stuff in SaaS applications using this technique. It's not just finding simple stuff, that static analysis might find, like cross-site scripting or SQL injection. Finding authorization bugs, finding obscure workflows that have strange vulnerabilities in them, and then draining the swamp of that. Anyway, I'm sorry, that was very long-winded, but this is the most exciting thing I've seen in the pen test space in quite a while.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. And I think, again, just the altruistic way of doing that. We're providing it, through SANS as a learning opportunity, as this is, a capability to see and really enhance the future of managing vulnerability, managing systems. I can imagine, and I would want my team doing, not only doing the training, but also my development team utilizing these same techniques as part of a quality assurance program. This is phenomenal. I mean, it opens up so many new doors as to managing, again, that shift left we talked about, and really giving back to the community. Because I what sprung into my head, Ed, was, all right, let me take the training and let me get on as many bug bounty programs as I can to cash in.
Bug bounties changing like overnight. Things are moving so fast
Absolutely.
there. And to your point there, Sean, um, so we've been doing this, like I said, for 15, 16 months. And I got the idea for writing a class on it back in November of last year, so about 6 months ago. And I went
Wow.
to my team and I'm like, hey, what do you think? We could write a class on this. And a couple of people on my team said, this is our special sauce. This is like stuff that we've been, are you sure you want to give this away in a class? And I said, look, my entire career has been figuring out how to do pen test things and then teaching people how to do them through SANS and other organizations. So yeah, of course I want to do this. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
that's and notice that's an AI-centric workflow. We're also doing other things where we're having the AI do the scanning and interact more with the pen tester. We think we can get to about, maybe the AI will do 60% of the pen test, like
Wow.
network pen testing or assume breach. We think we can get there, but I still don't trust it enough, because sometimes a model will have a bad day, or a bad week or month, and inexplicably something just happened. So we got to check that very carefully. Right now, I have my team, whenever we're using what we call Sidekick, this little thing that does the pen test with you. Um, I tell my team, you still have to do the same thing Sidekick does, and you're sharing back and forth, findings and such. But Sidekick will find a lot of low risk, medium risk. We did have Sidekick. It was actually during RSA when I first got notification of this, but Sidekick found a critical vulnerability that my human tester said I wouldn't have noticed.
Wow.
So that's good, because I mean, ultimately the goal is to find vulnerabilities so we can fix them to better manage our business risk. I mean, that's what pen testing is all about. Um,
Absolutely.
but it's very cool and interesting and exciting times. There's all of this. People are concerned with Mythos and its ability to find these vulnerabilities, and the race is on. Also, I'm sure you've heard of the big meeting. It happened, as of our recording here, a couple weeks ago. Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, and Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, called together all the CEOs of major banks and said, "What are you doing to deal with this Mythos thing and other related models?" And since then, the fallout has been really interesting. We went from this place of source assisted, AI analyzed pen testing being a curiosity, a very interesting thing, to now people demanding it, including government officials. Also, it was a couple weeks ago that European central banks all said, "Hey, we need our financial institutions to start doing this kind of work now." To keep up or even get ahead of Mythos related capabilities in the hands of our assailants, our bad guys. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Very, I mean, again, we've talked about how exciting a time it is. There is the question though, and I pose it, in respect of the 60%, right? We're looking. You mentioned 60% as being, a capability. I'm not quite trusting it, but I think as time goes on, maybe we'll have this discussion in a year. Well, we're, closer to 70. And then we'll have another year, about 80, 85. And do you believe you'll start to see the trust, the inherent trust in terms of the overall percentage aligned to an AI enabled capability or the agency that will provide it increase over time? Or is it very important to not replace the penetration tester with AI in the next 3 to 5 years, but more as the enhanced capability? It'll always be within a range, but you also you need the human in the loop, as it were. Any thoughts there?
Absolutely. I think about this all the time. I talk with my team about it all the time. I talk with a lot of other people in the industry about it. One of the foremost thinkers on this is Jason Haddix. He's done some amazing work. He'd be a great guest on the show sometime. He says, I told him we think we can get to 60% on this. He said we're at about 80%. So he's, well, a competing pen tester. He's also a very good friend and somebody I respect tremendously. So he's ahead of us on this. We're ahead of a lot of other folks. But we compare notes. We're always
Yep.
comparing notes. My vision is that I think we can get to 60%. We're not quite there yet now, and I don't trust it quite enough to just let it go by itself. I think we could foreseeably get to 80%. I don't want to get to 85 or 90 or 100%. I want to get to 80%, but then as the AI gets better and better, that 80% will include more things, but stay at 80%. Because the
Right.
20% left for the human will include more things too. Now, you have to be careful and manage burnout. I mean, burnout in the age of AI and these centaurs that we were talking about earlier is a really huge thing. So that there's a management component of that. But I've told my team since the very start of this AI innovation journey, as people are calling it now, I do not want to create an AI pen tester in the box company. I want to do the best pen test we can, and that means AI with humans working together, making judgment calls, checking each other, achieving more than either could by themselves. Now, there are AI pen test companies in the box. There are approximately 7,500 of these companies at RSA. I'm exaggerating, but to make the point, they're everywhere. Um, that's interesting. Some of them are actually seeming to do some pretty good work, but I think that's a different business model that will split off from the ones that still have humans. I don't think the AI pen tester in a box model is going to completely eat the human pen test business.
Yep.
But I do think the human pen test business has to adapt to have an AI component to it. And the best of the best pen testers will go that direction. And then, you know, there's this term. It's kind of a derogatory term. I created the term. I don't know if people know that, but the pen test puppy mill. Have you ever heard the expression?
Sure.
I think
Yep.
I think John Strand made it famous because he talks about it all the time. That's these pen test companies that don't do very good work. They're glorified vulnerability scans, if that. I called them pen test puppy mills 15 or 20 years ago. John took the term and went to town with it. We may drain the swamp of pen test puppy mills because the AI pen tester in a box company will do those and do it better. And that's actually good for the industry. It's good for the industry. But my hope and my bet is we're not going to kill the human AI combination as still being the gold standard. That's my hope, and it's actually not only my hope; it's my belief. I really think that's what's going to happen.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And I think it's, where we have to lean into the AI in some cases, but I do think, to your point, as we can increase the scope with AI to to get to the 80%, then there's still the more work, as you mentioned, that there's still that generation for the human in the loop to also be not only occupied but monitoring. I think idea generation in that space too, in terms of attack surface. Um, and then the other thing I also see, Ed, is the AI enabled developer is creating more and more content that needs to be assessed. And also, we can lean into that as well and provide capability in this area in terms of, well, there's a huge attack surface, a lot greater, as it were. The other thing I go to, though, is the interconnectedness and the underlying business logic that you mentioned earlier, and being able to lean into that and have, as you said, this AI enabled fuzz testing of all combinations of input. It is, again, I think we lean into it. We should be doing this. And I think, again, it's going to, as it were, drain that swamp of these outliers in terms of underlying issues, underlying logic bug, and really start to, I hope, polish, a lot of these applications and these elements that we see. And then over time, I think one, it's greater levels of security, but I think now we've got uh, AI enabled, as it were, exploit discovery capability to think about things we've never thought before. This continues to add to our life cycle, as it were, of where the penetration tester becomes and from the work that we've done, is a core component of any security program. And I think that's just going to be reinforced.
Yeah, I know I have many thoughts on what you said there. This is great. I love talking with you. I always get so many ideas. So people talk about human in the loop with AI and such. I kind of bristle at that term because it seems to dismiss the human. The human is merely in the loop.
Right.
It seems very passive. I'm a human and I exist in this loop. So that's why I'm trying to come up with ideas like AI matador and Wrangler or whatever it is. So we need a better term than human in the loop. But it's the term widely used, right? That phrase
Right.
is widely used. But how can we show more agency of the actual people that are interacting with the AI? I don't have an answer for that, but it's just whenever somebody says human in the loop, I'm like, and I try not to use that term myself. So I try to use other stuff that maybe people don't even know or understand as well. The other thing, though, that you talked about is AI doing the source development, right, in the first place. Couple thoughts on that. When we can integrate vulnerability detection in the CI/CD pipeline itself, more than just traditional static analysis. As you check in your code, it looks for cross-site scripting or SQL injection, but actually it does the kind of analysis that we're doing using AI. That's a big game changer because you will not be allowed to check in vulnerable code. And that's coming super soon. We're on the verge of that right now. There was an announcement by OpenAI of a project, an experimental project called Aardvark, and it was last November. And it was essentially that. It sits there and waits for your developers to try to check in code. And if they try to check in stuff that's vulnerable, it actually fixes it and sends the code back fixed to the developer saying, check this and then check this back in. That, I think, will go a long way into draining the swamp too. So this is revolutionary times in software development. And I've been talking with some folks on my team for the last year or two, and a lot of people say AI-generated source code has a lot of vulnerabilities, which it does, and it's a big concern. But that seems like a shallow, narrow problem that that will get past soon. I mean, really soon, like it's happening now. So a lot of exciting opportunities here. And we're in for a ride like we've never seen in cybersecurity. And very soon, next year or 2 or 3. What exciting times to live and to be part of this,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ed, that brings us to the end of, we could continue probably for a few weeks talking about this, but we've got other things we need to do, right? But I think one of the things I would offer is we're on that journey with the audience as well, right? And this is why we want to come together and provide these thoughts and the next 3 to 6 months of the fluctuation and the integration, the impact, and respectfully the recovery after the vuln-apocalypse, let's say,
Yes.
That starts. Is we're going to be right there with you. Thank you, Ed, and thank you to our audience. Make sure to subscribe in all the usual ways with your preferred podcast provider. Catch us on YouTube at the CI Security. Any questions, comments, concerns, reach out to us, podcast@cisecurity.org. And with that, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the podcast today.
The thoughts and opinions expressed by our podcast guests are solely theirs and do not necessarily reflect those of CIS.
Tune in on Wednesdays for a new episode. And in the meantime, visit our website at cisecurity.org.
Together, we'll continue our efforts of creating confidence in the connected world.